So in this video, we're going to be getting out a Pomoly tent and the stove. Last week I showed on the channel dandelion shell tent and stove, and I talked about how the tent didn't really have much room to move around in the long cold winter nights. Now I will link it in the description if you haven't seen that video, but it's in the playlist if you want to check out, if you want to see just what hot tent I am on about from Pomoly. Sorry, dandelion shell. But this week it's going to be a Pomoly tent. So with these videos I am hoping, but it's helping people pick a hot tent if they're getting a hot tent camping over this winter time, because there is so many different brands out there, different shapes, designs, you know, different fabric, all different types. So if I can show you different hot tents, hopefully every week, I can make my way through the ones that I've got and I can give you my honest opinion on them. I won't make out it's brilliant if it isn't, because I just don't agree with that the slightest. I do prefer to be very honest. Now, to be honest with this, I can't remember how this goes. If that goes like that, how do you pull out the door? That won't work well, would it? So I need to somehow, hopefully, remember myself how to do this. Unless that goes in ground. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got it, sorry. That goes in ground, pin side down. There we go. Bit more, pushing it ground. You got to peg it out like that. But first of all, when I get the other pole in, what I meant by that is, you see this here? This is like a bottom peg sort of thing. That goes into the ground. And this goes up into the material of the hot tent. Now I've just recorded one piece and I'm calling the hot tent the stove. So I've just had to nip back and sort of redo that bit of video. So what I need to do now is zip this side back up. And hopefully, it should do it. I don't know why I'm saying hopefully. We'll peg it out like how it should do. And the whole tent will start taking shape. Now, the thing about this tent is you don't need to use it as a hot tent if you don't want to do. You can use it just as a normal tent, what I have done myself. In the description as well, I'll share two videos. One of last week's video and one when I was using this hot tent when we had a lot of snow. It was cold, and we'll talk about the problems that I had as well soon. That don't look right to me. Need to peg it out, pull it out a bit better than that. So this is the Stove Up 70 from Pomoly, all set up. This is a big tent, and this tent, it does have one or two problems. Now, I'm going to be honest in the video. I wouldn't want you to see it like this and go, wow, I really want it. There's one or two issues, okay? And I'm like I said, I'm going to be honest. When this tent came out, it leaked, the version 1 of it. Then they brought the version 2 out, that leaked again. And then they redid it all again, it cost them thousands. They brought number 3 out. This is number 3. I've had no leaking with this one. No leaking at all. What the problem was, it was the back vent. Anyway, they made all that better. It stopped leaking in. Now, issue I've had with this tent is keeping this tent warm. I had a stove in the stove compartment, what is here. This is where your stove goes. Obviously on the inside, your stove jack pipe cover is here. We'll get that out, bring you over in a minute and show you that. But yeah, it got a lot of stick. And what we're going on is people like myself were testing mine and making a video because Pomoly said, would you better test it please, make a video and let me know. We did it, and then there were people that jumped on the bandwagon saying everybody were lying about the tents leaking. That's how it went. This tent got a lot of attention when it did leak, but when they finally made the third one like this, it's unbelievable. It's just my issue with it is keeping it warm. So you can pour this out. If you're not keeping it warm as a hot tent and you want to have a good look out, I need to just pull this one out here. So you see this? I don't have any more paracord to do it properly, but you can pull it out properly, and then it's got, you see this material here? A bit of a wind block or a bit of a rain block, so it don't come in. It does go to the bottom half there, but it does stop the majority of it. And all you have to do is peg it out with your pole. There's a spare pole there, like that. Pull the pole out, and then you can use it like that if you're not using it as a hot tent. But this tent is a hot tent, it's what people are using it for. Now I do have other Pomoly tents. I'm not going to fib about it because Pomoly started sending me other tents out of theirs to show on the channel, just like they have to hundreds of other YouTubers when that tent started getting used all over YouTube. And there's YouTubers now what are still getting equipment from Pomoly, and you know what, the price of it, I think if anybody got some offered for free to use on a YouTube channel, I think 99.99999% people would snap the fingers off. Why wouldn't they? So anyway, you see this big mesh door? I believe when I use this as a hot tent, I will lose a lot of the heat from here, even with this down, and it will windy. So all this is, the back is pinned out by a bit of paracord, the front one, and then all the wind will hitting it, so it will getting right in like this, and it will getting blown around. I think I will losing a lot of heat like that from the tent. But if I can just, yeah, I've got it people, I lost the zip. Imagine that, losing a zip. Right, I'm just gonna throw this over there for now. It could have done with getting pegged out, probably just a little bit better there. There we go. Look at all the room. I'll bring you in and you can see more room, and you can see all the mess that I left it last time I used it. Now that is slightly embarrassing. Look at the state of it. But it was freezing, absolute freezing that morning and night time. So I would just try to get it all packed away. Now last week, I ran about the tent not having a lot of room to move around in where your stove is going. This tent is different, you have a heap of room. You can get 2 people in it, very comfortable. You've got this massive doorway so you're not fighting over each other. You've got another doorway there, I'll show you that in a second. So you do have the massive vent at the bottom. Over there, that is what we're leaking on the version 1, but they sorted all that out. And like I say, you can see here, it's pulled out, I guidelined it out. You get a pocket over this side. Now, this is another reason why I think it won't get warm when I use it as a hot tent, is I think when the heat were coming down, it was escaping through the netting. Even though you can really pull that down, it'd be better if it were a zip, and then, you know, you can trap the air in best you can to keep warm in a tent. I do believe that were a bit of an issue. It would have been nice if this would have been probably one of them little flaps here as well, you know, on the inside, so you can zip it up from inside to stop the heat getting out. And this here is the other door. So you do have another exit point if needed. But once again, there's no way, once the heat comes in, it drops down. I do believe the heat were escaping from here as well, because there's no way beyond the mesh where you can see straight down to the floor, I think, if I've got it right. Yeah, you see there, I think that's what we're allowing the cold air to come up as well. so it was cooling the tent down hell of a lot. And this is another issue. You can see where I've been kneeling. Watch, there's no there. If I push down it long enough, you can see the water coming through. So I don't think the floor has any waterproof coating on it. And you can see here the space. Once you open your mesh door, this takes you to your stove area. So you've got a couple of zips. You'd need to tie that out like this. I don't know if you can hear the ice cream in the background of the video, but it's, you know, it must be at least a mile or two away. And you can still hear it, I think. But I'm not in no mountains, or I'm just in a little bit of private land. So here is the area where your stove goes. You've got your stove jack here. This is where your pipe goes out. I've used this before and I've put all the wood on this side here, added my stove there. But as I pinned it out, I think you can see at the top corner over there, but it doesn't want to go all the way down. You have to really force your pipes into the ground. I'm not going to do it now. And then that allows the material to drop closer to the floor. Like I say, I believe I was getting a lot of cold air coming in when I'm using it as a hot tent. I think, like I said in the video when I use this tent, it's an okay tent. I just somehow really don't feel, I'm just trying to pull that further down to the ground, but you'd have to have your peg right there. And then if you push it right down so it's tight there, then you cause all this. But to make it all tight, you've got to do it like that. But still, there's a distance gap there, and you can pull this much as you want. There's always going to be that gap, what is a bit of a problem. I think that's made it a little bit better. And you can also do this, actually. You can open this side here. Like so. So if you want to cook when it's not that cold outside, but using your stove, you can do all your prepping and stuff there. Now this stove is a beauty, but even the stove has a very small problem. For me, it might not be a problem for everybody else, but for me, it does have a small problem. But what a cracking stove it is. I need to get it cleaned out, get it ready for season, for hot tent camping. Look at that, it's very easy. I like the stoves like this, where there's not a lot of working to set them up. I've got a couple of stoves where you have to use like the stove pipe and you've got to roll it up. But this is dead easy. Look at this. I might not even clean it out. It's just going to be in the same condition in the morning after I use it. Now there's a top shelf in this stove right at the back, and that helps with when the wood's burning, it gasifies and it comes out, and then what it does is it second burns the gas, so it gives you a lot more heat on top. I'll do a separate video about the stove working and showing you more about it, but it's dead easy to set up. You've got like an ashtray there, take the ashtray out, and then here, this is your vent, open, closed, so the airflow comes in from the bottom to burn the wood from underneath. Anyway, let's close the stove, let's set the pipe up, and then we'll show you what it's like all set in place. Now these ones are dead easy, these are just pushed together, like so. There is one more piece of this, but I crushed it, so hopefully it'll be long enough to go through the tent and enough distance from the top of the tent, so when the spark arrestor works, all the sparks should be hitting this here and then coming out and dying down before it touches the top of the tent and then burning a hole in it. So in time, I will be using all these different tents and stoves on the channel again, just so you get a better insight to seeing them working. That's what it looked like when it's all in place. But I do feel like I need to pull this corner out a little bit more, because I think this stove is probably a little bit too big for this tent. I think one of the Pomoly stoves, what, you know, it collapses down, you got to roll the pipe up itself. I think they're probably better for this type of tent. I think the Pomoly stove, this one, is like way too big for it. But it's just showing you how it looks and how it all goes together. But I like this stove because it's front facing. So like this, where you are now in the tent, this is the bedroom area. The sitting area, it's got a lot of room to sit up with chairs if you want and stuff, and you can just stare at the window, burning away. Now it does have an airflow vent adjuster here at the top of the stove. Now I'm not sure if Pomoly has this stove in stock anymore, so you'd have to check out the website. I will try to link that in the description as well. Noting it for me, no affiliation links or all like that. It's just me, you know, being nice and sharing links to stuff. And what's good about this one as well is, do you know that wood you can get from Home Bargains or B&M if you're in UK? It's all that pre-chopped wood. It fits in this stove perfect. So there's no having to cut it down and stuff. I like to use that stuff because I like to help my local hardware out. It's his own little business, and I like to buy the wood from him instead of the big supermarkets. So can you see how high the stove goes? I think this will be at least another one, so it'll be well up there. Wow, excuse me, just had a sneezing fit then. Yeah, so you'll have another probably 7, 8, 9 inch on top of that. So that's perfect. When the sparks do go up, if any go up and hit the sparkers and fly out, then by the time it gets down to the tent, they should be cool enough and not burn your tent. But yeah, I do actually think what I've got there, without having to replace just one of these pipes, it will be good enough. So the whole idea of hot tents for the winter time when it gets in the minus temperatures and stuff, it's all about staying warm, being comfortable, enjoying your night out without being in a freezing cold tent from 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night right to 7, 8 o'clock the next morning. When you're in a hot tent, you can have your bed set up, you got your stove going there. You know, it should generate the heat to keep you warm. Now you can get a fan for the top of the stove, and what that'll do is when the fan heats up at the bottom, somehow it creates energy, and then the fan kicks in and it blows the warm air to the direction the fan's blowing. You do need to get a tester in case any nasty fumes come out of your stove through the night. I'm going to bring that to the video, to the channel, to make a video of one. I really need to remember what I'm saying in these videos. It'll be a start, won't it? But yeah, it is what I'd say a beginner's tent. And then I think what you do then is you start making your way up the Pomoly styles of tents to get better ones. There's something that I think would have been better if Pomoly would have thought about doing it. What it would have really helped a lot with like any leaks from the stove through the night. And that is, you see where it's got this mesh here? Let me just take my trainers off and climbing. So inside the tent, where your stove is here, it would have been good to see when this is closed up here like this, zip it down across and across. It would have been good to see another door there made out of this material where you can zip it all the way around so it's a complete zip. Then if any fumes did happen through the night, they won't be getting into your sleeping area. They'd be staying in that area there. And it would have been good if they'd had like a vent here on the inside of the stove area where when you are getting settled down for the night, you could open the vent and then this would have the other door over it anyway. And then all the airflow could go in there to help cool the stove down a little bit. Plus any nasty fumes could leave the tent so you won't be in any risk. I think that would have been a good thing to do. But I'm not sure if Pomoly make the tent like this anymore anyway. I'm just showing you different tents. There is different brands what are copying this one. So I don't think the shapes and the design, let's say, is changing much. I think they're just adding bits here, there and everywhere and saying, oh, now we've designed this. I know most hot tents are made in China and they're made by typically 1 or 2 manufacturers. It's not like Pomoly are making their own, Dandelion Shell are making their own, one Tigress are making their own, one Wind's making their own. It's all made from like 1 or 2 big factories. And what they're doing is they're going to a company saying, well, you know, this is what they've got. Can we do this, this and this? And do you want your name on it? And then that's how all other brands are doing this. Now, I know that because I've been told specifically from a company what are doing it. I'd be more inclined just to use this as a summer tent. You know, summer camping? Because you can put your bags in there out of the way and your shoes and stuff. And then you could just sit in your chairs here, have a few beers, looking out to wherever you are, enjoying the sunset. You get a couple of people in here, if you push if you want, 3 people. But then I also like the idea of it being a hot tent. There's not much more I can say about the tent, to be truthful. I'm just trying to point out everything about it in case you're getting one like this design. What I'm going to do actually, I'm going to nip off and I'm going to have a look at Pomoly website and see if they're still doing this tent. I want to see how much it is and I can tell you about it. So I've just looked on the website. Pomoly is selling this tent for £189. Wow, it's still pretty cheap actually for a tent like this, what you can use rather a hot tent or just a normal camping tent. Now, I'm not sure about the price of the stove because they had a lot of stoves on there. Wow, you could spend some serious money. You really could. And there's some little high hooks here. And what you could do with these is you could put a bit of paracord around it if you don't have the pole and just fasten it from tree to tree. This here. And there's one on each side. There's one here and there's one round it. That is very awkward to point at that. There's one here and there's one there. Yeah, you can do it from tree to tree. It might give it a little bit more tension, but it is fairly strong as a tent like this. I'm going to test this stove in this tent because I'm intrigued to see how it goes. But I tell you what, it does look really good just sat there like that, doesn't it? It's nice that I've got this equipment to show people if they're thinking about buying the setup, what to expect, what it looks like, you know, the sizes and stuff. I will link now, another link, bloody hell. I'll have to remember to put all these links in as well. I will link, like I said, the Pomoly website specifically to this hot tent so you can see it. I'm not sure about the stove because when I got this one, it was the last one, I do believe. Because to do bigger ones, I think there's 3 different sizes, small, medium, large, and the large one it's massive. You could do with that with the Pomoly TP tents. I hope I'm giving people the advice that they need. I just don't want to be that YouTube channel anymore what uses this stuff and doesn't say, you know, talk about the equipment once you've used it a few times. I've used it. I do believe in colder weathers, all the gaps and stuff, and like I say, the thing, what would you call that now? The air vent and the doors, they don't help with keeping the cold out. So then it don't make the tent warm enough inside to be comfortable all night long. If it's a warmish night, it's not too bad. You will feel the heat. But like I say, if it's really cold, I think in the video what I used it for, I think it was snowing, if I'm right. So the ground was freezing as well. So it was just, it's mainly not for them weathers, to be fair. But Pomoly do a mean tent and it's called the Leo 2. I remember Vegan Dan having that, and that was a beast of a tent. He had a little stove. And because of the way the Leo 2 is set up and designed, let's say, it trapped every inch of heat from a little stove with very little wood. I don't think Vegan Dan does have that video on his channel anymore, so that is a shame. But I'm sure if you put into YouTube Leo 2 hot tent from Pomoly, or Pomoly Leo hot tent 2, I'm sure there'll be somebody who's got a video on YouTube about it. But this stove, is going to appear in a lot of hot tents on my channel over the winter time. I like it because it's not that big, but it kicks out a lot of heat, and it's like I say, it's got the second burn from when it reburns the gases from the wood, and it's front facing. There's not nicer when you put clean wood in it and you're just watching it gradually burn, and you're on your little bed relaxing with a cup of tea or a can of beer, whatever you're doing in your hot tents. It's nice. The issue for me is there's not a lot of room on top to put like a pot or a kettle to heat up, because the stovepipe is bang on in the centre. If it were over this way a little bit more, like some of the Pomoly ones are, then you'd have this area here to enjoy cooking on. So it's not probably the right sort of stove to be cooking on, but like I say, the second burn really helps with the heat. So a few times in this little video I've talked about how you don't have to use the tent as a hot tent, so you won't have the stove in place. Then you might think about, well, it's going to get in through here. Well, you can actually just simply unroll this little cover for the stove jack itself, roll it down, and then stick it over like that, so then any wind, rain won't make its way into the tent. So here is the back of the tent, and this is where the air vent is behind this flap. You just peg it out with a peg there, put a bit of tension on it if you want, and you have these sort of like wing ideas. And what that does is it just stops any wind and rain making its way in the vent there. And it's also got one at the other side. As you can see, this bit of material comes down to where the guy line is to pull out. So it's pretty simple to put up when you're getting ready to do some camping. So it is a great starter's tent for hot tent camping. Now, even though it's had a lot of stick, when Pomoly finally made it right, they did replace everybody's hot tent who got one. It's not like they went, only Pacific people can have one of the new ones. Every one of the hot tents what leaked, they remade it and sent them out, which I do think was quite a nice thing what Pomoly did there, because they could have very easily not accepted every one of them were leaking. I made my video because they wanted to see where my one were leaking from, and I did that. And then, like I say, Pomoly replaced it for me. Now, there's some companies out there, mentioning no names, what would blank you if you had that issue, and I wouldn't believe you. But Pomoly, they did it. Everybody's tent replaced. I felt bad for doing my tent and posting it, but they asked for that. You know, what can you do? You've got to be honest. I've already said, this hot tent, it don't keep warm like you'd want it to do. I think it's too much airflow in areas. Now, if I said, get this hot tent, get a stove, you're going to be red all night long, and you take one of your kids out camping, you know, and it's cold, it's not going to be very nice for them. So I do like to be honest. In every video I upload about hot tents, I'm going to be very honest. Now, I've shown last week's one where I talked about the amount of room. This time I've shown about, you know, how I think it struggles to keep the tent warm. Next video of it, I think I'm going to show the very, very first hot tent that I got. And what is all this about with the hand? I'm going to show the very first hot tent that I got. When I got the hot tent, what I'm going to show next week, I was amazed, but the stove was way too big, way too bulky, and by God, I had to strip off in the hot tent. That's as far as I'm leaving that. So last time, I walked at the back of the tent and I explained about the room where we're going to have to move around in. So here, from here to the end of the tent, it's your stove area. This is common sense. The full length from here to the end, believe it or not, is your living quarters. A lot more room to move around in, to do what you want to do in. Now, I will share a link to last week's video and you can see exactly what I mean. This one, you can very easily get some chairs inside if you really want, do a little table, get your camp bed down. I like to use a cot bed. It's like a fishing bed. I like using that. It's comfortable. With hot tents, you don't really intend to, you know, hike miles upon miles because you've got to find a source of wood and everything for that. But unless you go in your car and you set up next to your car, I've seen that on YouTube. That is a fantastic way of doing it. But then you can take some serious equipment with you. But yeah, you've got all the room in this one. My issue is I just struggle to keep the tent warm a lot. So that's me being honest. Now what I'll do is somewhere on the screen over in this direction, I will share my little logo. If you want to subscribe to the channel, see more hot tents, what I'm talking about, see me using the hot tents, testing winter setups and stuff and doing odd camps here or there as well. Please do subscribe to the channel. You can just press my face somewhere there. I'll share the video when I use this hot tent up here. Up here, I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction. Up here somewhere above my head, I don't know. Yeah, it'll pop up there. If you want to see that, please do. You'll see all more about tent using it in the room once you set up and stuff. But for now, thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you because that's my own intentions of making these videos to help you guys pick the best hot tent for yourself from 2025 onwards. Thanks for watching.